Welcome to another New Spurs Order pod. I'll be your host once again, X-Pac, joined for a lively stream tonight by two lovely co-hosts as it stands. First up, Kevin Nyash. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm testing the angles today. You know the vibes.
We do know
Like,
the
I'm getting that
vibes.
back in blood, by
Indeed.
the way.
We don't expect anything less. Ash, how you doing? We still need to get you a kind of NWO,
yeah.
WWE-esque name. I don't know if you wanted to kind of self-proclaim and put another name forward, but
Yeah, I ain't really thought of that yet, but I'll think of it in the
Nah,
coming few days.
he's been anointed already, man. He's been anointed already. We'll release that one in due course, though.
But I look forward to it.
fair enough. And how you doing generally, anyway?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Surprisingly, I don't know. I'm not really feeling. I'm not really feeling nervous for this. I'm not saying it in a way that like I expect us to go there and just pop them off the park. But I'm not really feeling nervous about this derby. I'm not gonna lie. Normally, I do get the nerves a few days before. I'm not really feeling that for some reason.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. And we'll get into that. Firstly, it feels like a long time ago since we actually last played. Obviously, not being in Europe now, we've got some sort of just playing one game a week and it just feeling like just a very long time. I've only really just stopped watching all the videos from all of the limbs and everything else from the Sheffield United game. But Ash, I guess I'll start off with you. See, how did you feel going into that Sheffield United game, and how did you feel about obviously the first half where we looked like we struggled to break them down?
Do you know what the funny thing is? I was speaking to one of my mates like the day or two before, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna smash them, and it's gonna be minimum 3 goals." And I remember I was saying specific because I remember I was saying in the build up, even on Spaces, I was saying I think this for me going into that game, I was thinking that that's gonna be our first proper test against a proper low block. Like no one else that we faced up until Sheffield really played a low block like that, right?
True.
So I was kind of interested, not really concerned, but more sort of interested to see how are we going to deal with. And I'm talking like a proper filthy low block, right? So I was kind of interested to see how are we gonna approach the game, how are we gonna chip away. Obviously, I wasn't even till now. I'm not really confident in our forwards. Not really. Maybe one or two of them, yeah, they're all right, but I'm not really that confident in our forwards. So I was interested to see how they would do, how we would keep chipping away, because obviously, against these low blocks, you just have to keep digging until you eventually break the lock. So first half, I get it, it's frustrating. Do you know what I mean? But people got to understand it's no games are like that sometimes. It happens to Man City, right? They play against low blocks. They come away with sweaty 1-0 wins, and it happens. But I'm glad we got the win. Obviously, their goal was just, mate, you can't do it. It's just like one of those pop fluke shots, goes into the bottom corner. But yeah, I like the way that we carried on fighting till the end. Even right at the end, 2-3 minutes before when we scored that goal, pressing high up the pitch, non-stop pressing, constantly trying to go for it. So yeah, man, it was a good win.
Fair enough. Papa Blankson saying for this type of low block, you would love to obviously have a Bentancur available. That's an ideal for any game, to be fair. Or start Lacelso with Madison.
No, no, stop it.
Fair enough.
Miss me with that. Sorry, respectfully, no.
Lacelso.
I do think it's interesting that like people focus so much on the low block, because I feel like we held territorial advantage throughout the whole game. That was a given, but I didn't really have an issue with the quality of the chances that we created in the first half. We pretty much had identical XG over both halves anyway, but all of our shots were right at the keeper. That has nothing to do with.
That's true. The quality of
nothing
shots
to do with chance creation. That's chance conversion.
No, that is true.
So it's one of those things. 7 shots on target in a half, 13 in total. I mean, law of averages say that at least one of them goes to the left or the right of the keeper, but I'm pretty sure the majority of them were directly at what's his name again? It's their goalkeeper's name. Not that it's important because they're
Right,
locked.
yeah.
So you're saying we didn't test the angles enough?
Exactly. We didn't test the angles enough. So
I noticed that as well. Like a lot of the shots we had were just not good quality shots.
Precisely. And I find it, I also find it interesting that, like, in the lead up to the season, whenever anyone identified what type of player we needed to go to market for, they mentioned someone like Maddison who can unpick a low block. That's not how you unpick a low block, unfortunately. Maddison is the type of player that will stretch a team, who allows us to have runners in behind. But in this type of scenario, I expected to see a little bit more from the inverted wingbacks, or fullbacks, I should say, because the only criticism I did have in terms of our chance creation over the first half was the fact that we didn't really use the underlapping runs that much. We didn't really fill all 5 channels. We were just sort of in front of Sheffield, and a lot of our cross quality was particularly poor as well. I think we had, over the course of the game, about 32 crosses, completed 7, and like, we've got some good crossers of the ball. Udogi's a good crosser. Poro's a good crosser. Kulusevski's a good crosser. Son's a good crosser. Nothing was sticking. So I feel like it was more of a case of, if I was going to nitpick on chance creation, it would be the quality of the crossing. And then overall, in terms of conversion, it was just a case of everyone was shooting like they were in flipping goals or something. Like, everything was just at the keeper. It's like no precision, no incision, just pure pot shots, and it was pretty poor standard, to be perfectly honest.
When you touched upon the inverted runs there, was you criticizing the quality of the runs itself, or just our bravery and not lack of bravery and be able to hit the runners?
I think it's more so the hitting of the runners, because I think the system is pretty systematic at the minute, to be perfectly honest. Like, where players are going to arrive at certain points. And I'd point out Solomon in particular, who just, in terms of his attributes, everyone always bangs on about having 1v1 players and all of that stuff, but he is literally Lucas Moura reincarnate. The build up into getting it, or the build up to get into good positions, is quality, and then the ability to just look up for that split second and create the opportunity for somebody else is extremely lacking. And it's still early in his Spurs career, but I don't feel like he's the ideal fit for that left-hand side. And it is a shame that Perisic is now injured, because I think as soon as he came on, we started to see the pitch spread a little bit more. There was a lot more width, and obviously his quality in terms of delivery showed immediately for the Richarlison goal, albeit from a corner. But again, it's still a completed cross in essence. So
I think I agree with the Solomon thing. The thing for me is, the reason why I'm a little bit calm about it is because, although he's starting games now, I think he started the last 2 or whatever, I'm very confident that he is not the long-term plan for the first team anyway. I'm pretty confident that next summer we will address that position. We will address the forward. I'm pretty confident we'll sign a forward next summer that is going to come in and start. I don't mind Solomon being like in the squad as a backup option. I just, obviously now our squad is quite thin. Guys are injured, so he's going to start games. But I'm pretty confident that he's not going to be the main guy going forward. So
yeah, I don't necessarily feel like there's a fear that he'll be the long-term solution. It's just, while we're in this situation where he is
it's not
literally one of
ideal,
the only
guys.
options.
Yeah.
And there were a few other players over the course of the game that weren't necessarily on job. I think Udogi struggled in the first half, breaking the press. We know that he likes to drive forward with the ball as opposed to pass out, but I feel like he was a little bit too one trick pony. That got remedied in the second half, where he was arguably one of the best players on the pitch in the second half. And I feel like Poro, for all of his attributes, I know we've had civil war in our group chat because anytime Porro gets mentioned, Emerson follows, or vice versa. But in all honesty, I feel like he played a decent enough game. It's just when you are looking to break down a low block, and when you do need the ball in the wide areas to come in with precision and real intensity, I didn't really see that from Porro, and I felt he was quite passive where there were opportunities for him to really show why he's in the team with line breaking passes as well as cross quality. So those would be my only two gripes, is that we didn't really get enough out of some of these players that could help us create better chances.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, just for context on what you just said, Sai here is probably the leader of what's formed as the EDL in the group chat. The Emerson Defence League.
Relax.
I said that on purpose. risky one. Yeah, the Emerson Defence League has been rife. There's been so much debate over Porro and Emerson in the group chat, which it hasn't really been a talking point amongst like general Spurs fandom and talk, especially on football Twitter. But we seem to have a debate on it every single day. I noticed a bit of a switch going into the second half, where I saw, well, for what I could see, I thought Kulusevski was more inverted in the first half, with Porro kind of being out wide, and they seemed to switch in the second half. Did you guys pick up on that at all? Because I noticed a big change in Kulusevski's performance right from the start of the second half. I felt like he was getting the ball earlier and in wider positions, and he was able to actually try and fix what was a bit of a problem out on that right hand side, whereas it kind of just seemed to just die every time it went out there. Whereas second half, we just seemed to just funnel the ball straight out there. Obviously unlucky with some of his actions, because I see he got a few good shots off, created a few good openings, but fortunately couldn't break them down. And then they scored from the corner. And at this point, I don't want to touch upon the time wasting or the penalty situations too much, because they're kind of up in the air, and I'm not even sure about the whole Madison penalty situation anyway. But
that's a definite penalty.
It was a pen.
That's a definite penalty.
Where's this diplomacy coming from, Owen, man? Come on. You know it's a pen.
I don't think it was. And I didn't think the Saboltsai penalty in Liverpool's first home game was a penalty. I didn't think the penalty we conceded against Brentford again on the first week was a penalty. So I'm just kind of keeping the same energy with that. So I just didn't think it was in real game time a penalty. I think it's a bit soft. I don't necessarily think it was a clear outright foul by Sheffield United's player on Madison. But more to the point, I just think we should have just done a bit better from open play in the first place. Like, I don't want to leave the game to refereeing decisions. Would it have favoured us heavily if we got a penalty decision? Yes. But yeah, I just didn't want to see us rely on that against a team which are struggling and have injuries and are still pretty much a championship team who dunked us out the FA Cup last season. But yeah, they scored, they made it 1-0, and then Ange was forced into some changes. Confident that he would get 10 minutes, give or take, added time. How did you, or what did you make of his changes? Do you not think he could have made them earlier, Ash? Or
I thought he was very brave with them, because I was thinking, why haven't you made these earlier? So it was a brave call. Obviously, it worked out for him in the end, which is, you kind of just got to say fair play. But I think even in his previous games, his subs have been good. His subs have definitely been good. And just touching on your previous point about not having to win it by getting controversial decisions, I think at the moment, obviously, we're still learning this new system that he wants to play, right? So it is going to take the players time to be in a situation where they're in full flow. I think right now we're just kind of getting used to the system. It's going to take a bit of time. So I think I can let certain things slide like this, where we should be doing. We see the opposition, we think we should be doing better. I can kind of let these things slide, but hopefully as time goes on, we get better and better. obviously get a bigger squad, which allows for more rotation, more game changers off the bench. So I think for now, I think I wouldn't look at that game too much and with any sort of worries really.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. And what did you make of Ange's in-game changes, Si? Because I felt like he probably could have made them earlier if I'm being critical, but it turned out to be bang on perfect. So
Yeah, I think he has done a good job at establishing at least two options for pretty much every role, and that's critical if you are going to navigate through a full league campaign. You need players that can come in and understand what's expected of them. And so far over the course of the season, with 5 games in, and every game there has been a substitute cameo that has contributed to the overall result. And 4 wins and 1 draw, like there's very little to complain about. So I have no qualms. I do find it interesting that we won once Emerson came on the pitch, but that's agenda man coming into flow. But no, in all seriousness, I know that people always nitpick about making changes earlier, but I think that is more of a symptom of a manager that trusts his system and trusts the players. Than I'd prefer that type of approach as opposed to someone always being reactionary, like say a Jose and ripping guys off after 33 minutes of a game and us still going on and losing. Like, and then that player just being shot of confidence for the next 6 months. Like, I'd
And
prefer a
do you
more
know
methodical approach.
Do you know one thing I've noticed with Ange, yeah? And obviously, you know, there's so many things that we don't know or we don't see about the game that they see, but I just feel that so far, the subs that I've been thinking in my head, he's been making them.
He's your manager, yeah?
Huh?
He's your manager, yeah?
No, but do you get it? Like, you know, sometimes with
I
Conte,
do.
like he'd make a sub, and then in my head, I'm just like, what are you like? I can't understand this. But I think with Ange so far, like, yeah, I would agree with all the subs that he's made so far. I can't remember what game it was. So it was Brentford first game, then it was
Bournemouth. No,
was it
Man
Bournemouth? Where
United?
I think it was the Bournemouth game where his subs changed the game.
Yes.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Was it Bournemouth?
Bournemouth away. It was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, Bournemouth away is where his subs changed the game.
Hooked Richarlison on like 60 minutes after he had a stroke.
Yeah.
And
But obviously it sucks now that Perisic is, because for me he's probably the biggest game changer we had.
fair.
So yeah, that's a big blow. That's a big blow, man. That is a big blow.
100%. Yeah, Perisic, is he doing his ACL? 34 years old, probably out for the season.
How did he do? What is that?
They said it was a no contact injury. Yeah.
What?
But that guy's he's a weird guy. Like, he came back from the World Cup last year and then started playing for us within like a week of coming back. And it was at least a week early from when he was actually meant to be coming back. And we know how much extra time Croatia just love playing. And then, after all of that extra time, he'd been playing, he'd been coming back. And then we saw what happened to Bentancur as well. We've been seeing what's been happening with knee injuries from players in the Prem, and then that just happens to him.
There's been an alarming amount of ACL injuries across all leagues this season. An alarming amount.
Yeah. Timber. Yeah,
that's a good segue though.
yeah. I mean, we'll get onto that in a minute. Just to wrap up the Sheffield United game, like, obviously we saw what the winning goal was. We saw the limbs. We all cheered Richie Lad, didn't we? We all cheered it. But just to rewind a little bit, hey, no. What did we think of Brennan Johnson's impact?
I think he looked quality off the bench, man. I genuinely, I know it's a little bit nasty at how fast the Delhi comparisons happened, because, you know, tall, light-skinned guy with a little taper fade, curly.
They almost sound the same as well. If you take away the accent, they actually it is weird.
But yeah,
I think that comparison just came from the goal. That I think, you know, very kind of similar to Delhi.
It was
Chelsea.
extremely, and like Delhi had scored that goal about 4 or 5 times in his Spurs career. Like that piece is apt. It's just the rest of it is a little bit Spursy. I can't lie, man. And we're changing what Spursy means because like coded,
We'll be
But yeah.
changing it tomorrow for sure.
But no, he looked good.
Nah, he looked lively. He definitely did look lively. He looked lively. But for me, it's just like how many options now we got off the bench. If everyone starts, what? Brennan Johnson, who else we got that can come on and do something?
Højbjerg,
Come off it, man.
as an 8. He's better than Captain Cobham.
I mean, eventually we'll have Sarr coming off the bench when Bentancur is back, who I think can contribute.
So you got Sarr, but mate, Brian Gill, you got. Listen, I'm looking at Gill, and like you got to give me Hill. I'm looking at Hill. Yeah, you got to give me something, man. Like pause.
He might give you a what's it
called?
Whoa! You want a yellow submarine from him?
He's like, bro. Do you know what it is? I don't like being too harsh, but for me, I'm sorry. This is it now. Like if he can't now step up, it's time to step out. Step up or step out. Like I like Hill, I like his attributes, but there's no more excuses now. So when he comes back from injury, obviously he's probably not going to start every game, but when he comes on, I need to see.
He's not going to start any games, bro.
Yeah, he probably won't start many games. But what I'm saying is when you come on the pitch, I need you to influence the game somehow. You can't just be this, fringe player your whole Spurs career. Like for me, it's up until now, until January. If he ain't cutting it, right? Even if he comes back, let's say in the next 2 weeks, next 3 weeks. If up until now in January, if his substitute appearances are just not really cutting it, I think we just move it. For me, it makes sense to move him on in January and then go and get a replacement in January.
We'll see what Big Ange has for him. Like Touchy Gooners have coined the phrase ARP. We have our own ARP, so we'll see what happens with Hill, with Brennan. There's a potential other option we could use for the North London derby, but I want to introduce our North London derby guest first. Obviously, we're now joined by Art de Roche, journalist from The Athletic, covers Arsenal and is a Football Manager hedonist. But other than that, good evening, sir. How you doing?
Good evening. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, really kind of funny way to join the chat. It brought a smile to my face. I thought it was quite funny. But hopefully I can bring some insight for you guys. I know probably don't read my stuff because it's all Arsenal based, but that's no problem. And glad to be on.
No, but we like a bit of debate here, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Are Arsenal going to keep a clean sheet at the Emirates?
That's a good opening question. I personally don't think it's going to come this weekend. I just don't quite have, that faith in a clean sheet coming. Because when you look at how they've performed at home, it is really just lapses of concentration that creep in early in games as well. I don't know how they kind of flick a switch when they go away from home, because as I'm sure everyone knows, they've kept, I think it's more clean sheets than anyone in the Premier League since the start of last season away from home. But at the Emirates, it is a different story. So for me, I don't see them keeping a clean sheet, which is probably not great from an Arsenal perspective, but hopefully for you guys and for the neutrals as well, it makes for some entertaining viewing.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's going to be interesting to see how you line up. Obviously, you have the new number one keeper now. He's into full swing of things. He's on the back of a clean sheet, so that might give you guys some confidence. How do you expect Arsenal to line up, given now Jesus is back? You've got the Havertz conundrum and the centre back issue.
Just to confirm, Martinelli's injured, right?
Pretty much, yeah. So Arteta was asked about it this morning, and he did his whole kind of just playing it cool kind of thing. But when he came off against Everton, he said it was a hamstring injury. So I doubt, highly doubt
I
that
doubt
he'll
he'll
be back
start
from that.
anyway. He might be on the bench, but it's
Yeah,
probably unlikely to start. So it'll probably be Trossard,
yeah.
Jesus, and Saka.
Yeah, so I feel like I wouldn't be shocked if it was unchanged from the PSV game. The only position that I feel could have, I guess, a potential rotation or change is that left 8 slot, where obviously Havertz plays. So Vieira started there against Everton.
I don't think
He was okay,
Vieira against
but
us.
yeah. So this is the big thing when those debates come. I think people aren't quite there physically, I guess, with Vieira.
That's what I was going to say. I think if you had Vieira, Odegaard, you're kind of lacking a bit of physicality in that midfield, especially if you're coming up against Pape, Sarr, and Bissouma. I think it'll probably be Havertz.
Yeah, so that is the one position basically where I think there is a big decision to be made.
Do you know what? Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he does Partey, Rice, and Odegaard. I wouldn't be surprised.
Partey's injured at the minute.
Oh,
he's
injured?
Out. Yeah, he's out for a few more weeks at least.
Okay,
so yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I think that probably could have been something that he could have done. It's something he did in the Community Shield against Manchester City. So you kind of saw there was, I guess, a kind of approach he wanted for those bigger games. But going into this one, yeah, either Havertz, Vieira as that left 8, and then aside from that, it would probably be Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Odegaard, Rice, Havertz or Vieira, and then Saka, Jesus, and Trossard. So that's what I'd expect to see on Sunday.
Yeah, that's fair. And is there? I mean, you've spoken on View from the Lane earlier. I listened to that on my little commute, and up you popped. I didn't even see that in the description, but I was just like, oh, okay, that'll be interesting to see his take. And there seems to be still obviously a fair bit of arrogance from Arsenal fans, and yeah, obviously confidence about beating us at the Emirates because we haven't obviously done anything in the league at the Emirates for over a decade, which is quite heartbreaking. We've got our next VDV coming up.
I think it's 30 years, right?
13, 1-3.
It's not said over a decade. He added 2 more to it.
We've won there once in 13 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the Van der Vaart one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the 3-2. Yeah. The Kabul header, I remember. Yeah, can't forget that.
I've got to say, playing in Europe didn't seem to affect Arsenal at the start of the season last year, but obviously playing in Europe this week, and Odegaard played 90 minutes, Saka played 70, I believe. Do you think that will kind of have any kind of bearing on the game at all, given Spurs will be fresh?
I personally don't think so. It is quite an interesting debate when it comes to how much time players need between games. I remember there was a point, it may not have been last season, but the season before, where Arsenal didn't have a game for about 10 days. And people said, oh, this is great. They're going to be so fresh going into the next game. And they were just so rusty. So I think the thinking behind playing such a strong team against PSV was basically, okay, 1, get 3 points on the board in the Champions League as soon as possible. But 2, get these guys actually up to proper speed, because one thing that's been the case with Arsenal so far this season is they haven't really clicked in possession. They haven't been as fluid as they were last season. And I'd say that performance on Wednesday was probably their best of the season so far.
I feel that from when watching you guys this season, I've watched most of your games. Mm-hmm. I feel that you're almost like reserving energy because you want you want to get through this period where you got all the group stages games. And I just feel that from watching Arsenal, I feel that you haven't really got out of first gear. And I think maybe he's doing it to reserve as much energy as possible to get through this difficult cluster of games. You've got Champions League, then you've got the EFL Cup week after next, I believe. You got the EFL Cup.
Yeah.
So I just feel, I could be wrong, I just feel that he's just trying to manage their energy right now and get through this period.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're wrong. That's definitely something like an idea that's been floated among Arsenal fans this week because, as you say, last year it was pretty much an emotional roller coaster from week one, really, and it's just draining. I think for not just fans who are watching the games, but especially for the players. And when you see where it all came crashing down for Arsenal last season, it wasn't because they played terribly. It's because of those split moment decisions where maybe they were a bit emotionally drained. They just weren't on it. So I think that could be a reason for it. But it is also definitely a case of, I think, people are waiting to see that more fluid side to Arsenal. Hopefully, at some point they do say get into second, third gear. And I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens this weekend, even though you guys wouldn't want that.
I do think the dynamic between time off versus repetitions is an interesting debate because, as you say, building rhythm is something that you want to establish as early in the season as possible. But there is also merit in teams that play one game a week at the upper end of the league, especially if you look back at Chelsea under Conte or many other examples. You do get the benefit of actually game planning for your team, and ultimately, a team that plays 2 games per week, there's more evidence for you to go back and watch tape on. So it could be an interesting tactical battle. I know that Arteta has been tinkering quite a fair bit. Obviously, I won't proclaim to have seen all of Arsenal's games this season, so maybe you could touch on maybe some of the adjustments that he's made this season compared to last, and even on a game-by-game basis.
Yeah, so at the start of the season, the big one was Thomas Partey and Ben White. So obviously last year, Ben White was playing right back, and what he'd do is he'd just get up the wing, either overlapping or underlapping to help Saka. Whereas start of this season, it was Thomas Partey at right back and Ben White moved into centre back. So Gabriel was the one who dropped out from the back four. And that's where the real, the first allegations of a lack of fluidity came from, because you could see, obviously, Thomas Partey's played there before at Atletico Madrid and at times last season, but it just wasn't as natural to him as it was for Ben White. And there were times where it just seemed like Arsenal were just kind of funneling the ball down the right, saying, just pass it to Saka. And then Saka's double, sometimes triple marked. And it just doesn't quite work the same. And that experiment, I guess we'll call it that, ran for about 2.5 games. And when it stopped was the second half against Fulham. When Zinchenko actually came back, he was injured for the first part of the season. He came back off the bench against Fulham and moved to left back, and then Ben White, I think, moved out to right back with Gabriel coming on. And there you just saw Arsenal looked like themselves again, where they're a lot more vertical in their passing because Zinchenko is able to just punch the ball into Ødegaard, and then Ødegaard's able to find Saka in. So within 2 passes, you've gone from defense to attack. That wasn't happening before. Beyond that, I think the other big experiment has been what happens with Kai Havertz, because there have been times where he started as a midfielder and then ended the game as a striker. And then there's also been the reverse of that, which has been quite interesting and also, I would say, frustrating to watch as well at times, because there are moments where you just think, come on, like if you move a couple more yards, you're scoring. And those little moments have been a bit, frustrating. But beyond that, I think Arsenal are now get into, I guess, a system that's more recognizable for not just their own fans, but people who were, I guess, casually watching them last season as well. So the lineup that I went through to the other question, that's a lot more in line with what people were seeing last season. So that's why I said I wouldn't be surprised if I'd see, I guess, a performance that replicates last season a bit more.
Straight out the traps. Yeah, hopefully that we don't have Spurs fans leaving at half time again, especially our own castmates. Sai, I'll come to you. Obviously, you asked a very thought-intriguing question there. How are you feeling going into this North London derby? See, your energy going into North London derbies is usually something I feed off. I'm not that much of a passion merchant, nor are you usually, but it seems to just really, really, really
I
come
mean,
out for these weekends.
with all due respect, we have an esteemed guest with us today who is clearly a professional, but the energy will forever and always be fuck them in it when it comes to Arsenal. And that's pretty much where my head is at. It's my daughter's singing in the background, but generally speaking, these games are a tale of two homes, really, like at White Hart Lane or the Tottenham Hotspur, whatever you want to call it on any given season. We tend to get the rub of the green, and the opposite is prevalent for Arsenal. So going into this game, I just want a result if I am to be conservative. But I think if we're going to speak about statements of intent or validation of what we've seen from this side over the course of the season, I think we have to turn up and try to play Ange ball, try and express what it is that we're trying to achieve over this course of the season, and ultimately be somewhat fearless. No one expects us to win this fixture, so what is there to lose? Like if we lose in a plucky, really sort of competitive game, people are going to go to work the next day and be pissed. If we lose and get whitewashed, people are going to be pissed the same way, realistically. So as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing to really be conservative about going there. And I do think we have tactical components that can trouble Arsenal. And I think we have personnel who ultimately have a point to prove. So this is the best way for them to do it.
It was one of those personnel, Richie Ladd?
Nah, I'm thinking Yves Bissouma, because we know the history. We've seen the memes. He likes to laugh at Arsenal's downfall. So bring that same energy, brother.
There we go. There we go. Ash, how are you feeling going into this game? Are we just hoping for like the good, respectable performance, or do you think we can get anything out of it?
For me, it's obviously we don't like. This is obviously the first big away game that we've had under Ange, and like I don't. For me, I don't know. Well, we're gonna find out, but we don't know yet how these guys are gonna mentally turn up in an away game, right? Because we know previously under Poch that we've played very good football at home, and we've gone to these big away games and we've not been at the races, right? So I'm not saying it's going to be the same, but I'm just saying I don't know what I honestly going into this game. I don't know what Spurs I'm going to see. I don't, right? I hear all of Ange's words saying we're going to go there and we're gonna scare the life out of them and all that, and it all sounds great, and I rate it. You don't want to go there, and you know what I mean. You want to. I rate what Ange said. I know a lot of Arsenal fans are laughing at him, but I rate it. But I'm just saying I don't know what to expect. I don't know how they're going to deal with the mental side of things. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm the same. I just hope for a result, draw, or obviously a win. But yeah, man, the midfield battle is going to be a good one. The midfield battle is definitely going to be a good one. I just hope that we go there and like Sai was saying, I just hope we go there. We're brave. We're not like we don't just go through the motions, and we actually try and play the football that we've been playing, right? Because I mean, I'm not saying that Arsenal, this and that. But looking at their last few games, they can be got at, and there's no reason as to why we can't hurt them. If we play the way we've been playing, we can cause them problems, and I just hope that we do that, and we don't just, go through the motions and just mentally just not turn up. I just want us to go there and turn up.
That's fair.
And
Yeah.
and everything, physically be in your jewels, right? Just in every aspect of the game, just
winning that midfield battle.
Huh?
One
Not
more
even just midfield, like just in general, like putting, working hard, running for each other, the players all together, just go there and give it everything. Because like
give me that passion. Give me that passion.
man. The passion is brilliant.
Power.
Like I don't want to see none of this, none of this shy behavior on the pitch. I want to see them out. This is like, bro, put it this way, yeah. We've had a good start to the season, right? For me personally, from the very start of the season, I put Man United as my biggest underachiever. So I don't really consider that as a big test. This is our first big test of the season, yeah? So I need us to rise it, yeah? I need to see the character in this team. So
Fair
hopefully we see that on Sunday.
But lads, who's going to take our penalty?
You know what? Listen,
I mean, we got no lorries. We got no.
It's gotta be Maddie.
This
It's
game
gotta
could
be
end
Maddie.
0-0. This game could end 0-0.
Maddison has to take the pen. Madison.
No.
All I'm saying is Big Ange has played old firm derbies, man. Like if you can't get your team up for a derby after experiencing that, which is way, way bigger than football, what are you doing? Right. And I know I'm being hyperbolic here, but at the same time, it's like I don't go into this game and question whether or not the players are going to show up with heart and desire, because we've seen that over the course of this season so far. And I think one of the big markers as to why we stopped seeing it is because we had two miserable bastards in the dugout. So I don't really have any sort of reservations about that. I do think this is going to be a serious, thinking man's game of football more than anything else. Arsenal don't really have players that have that dog in them. We don't really have those type of players either, bar maybe Romero, and I don't really want to see that from him. He's been muzzled like the XL bullies, and I've actually quite appreciated it. So
he hasn't made a foul this season, I believe, right?
No, he got booked in the last game.
Not an official one.
He got booked in the last game.
Prior to the last game, I don't think.
Well, he had made a foul, but I don't think he'd been booked, which is or something along those lines. But yeah, I do just want to see us actually turn up and play high quality football. That's pretty much my only prerequisite. The passion, the energy, the togetherness, all of that stuff is a given at this level with football. Like if you can't show up every game and show that sort of camaraderie and that teamwork and all of that,
but
you probably shouldn't be at this level.
It's something we've lacked though in recent times. So I want to see it.
We were also lacking in a distinct style of play though. So I think all of it was reasonable. And
the only concern I have is our lack of options when needing to change the game. That is the only concern I have. But that's one of there's no point really saying like what we can and can't do. It's just more those we just have to see when the time comes, if we do need to do it, what can we do? But I'm just not 100% confident in our options right now.
I'm quietly confident in the Ange refinement package to Brennan Johnson. And I was just in my head just then, I think you alluded to Man United. I'm drawing parallels between obviously Arsenal's home game against Man United and obviously our game now. And I said I don't actually doubt that we'll be brave in how we play. I think we will. I still think, regardless of that, we're still going to need to be clinical in our actions, because I think obviously Arsenal going to limit us to us. But how did kind of Arteta approach that game against Man United, and how did he press, given Man United's only threat essentially being on the counter attack?
Yeah, that was probably the biggest point of interest for me in that game, because obviously all the talk about Manchester United has been, oh, Onana's in, so now they're going to start playing out from the back. I know you guys are doing that to a much better standard than they are, but it is something that I am almost looking forward to seeing how it pans out, because Arsenal haven't really played against a team who wants to, or let me rephrase that, who is able to play proper football against them, because Manchester United tried it, but for most of that, especially the first half, their passes were just in their own defensive third and they couldn't get out. I'm sure there will be times where Tottenham are able to get out, but I'm also quite confident in the way that Arsenal press, because they really do hunt in packs now. And I feel like, and this is not to discredit Tottenham in any way, they're just very early in that kind of evolution period, I'd call it. So I feel like there may be some moments where Arsenal can really almost just like hyper beam their way onto the ball and steal it really high and try and almost lift the crowd that way.
I do feel you guys will push very high up the pitch.
Yeah. So again, it's just something that I'm interested to see play out, because it hasn't really happened so far this season in any game Arsenal have played. And I guess we'll just see, are Arsenal happy to, well, actually, to be fair, there was some talk about it earlier on at the press conference, whether Arsenal would be happy to kind of allow Tottenham to play, or would they want to dominate? And the vibe was Arsenal would want to dominate. So whoever's able to do that first, I think that will probably set the tone, and then how the other team reacts, that's what I'm interested in. So I personally, it's really kind of funny to see that everyone's mood going into the games, because for me, I'm someone who's quite confident in the days before the game. And then the closer it gets to kickoff, the more I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? I'm gonna lose my mind. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Is there any personnel, or are there any personnel in our team that you would identify as the pressing trigger?
I don't want to like sound harsh, but Romero is the one. I know Arsenal, actually their press is better on the right hand side, but both, I think, just, I know you guys were talking about how he's not made or wasn't booked until last weekend and stuff like that, but both on the ball and off the ball, I just feel like he's so rash. And I know you guys watch him a lot more than me and Arsenal fans in general, but I just feel, yeah, when it's there, go for it.
The only part I'd disagree with is him being rash on the ball. It's actually the total opposite. He's just super casual.
All right.
Or has been in a lot of moments, I
So
think.
my evidence is just the North London derbies.
Yeah.
There, so
no, but I have no disagreements in terms of in that back line. I think he is the least press resistant player, because I think he has improved in not underestimating or overestimating his teammates. So he has an uncanny ability to almost fire a disguised pass into the likes of Pierre Højbjerg or guys like Emerson, or just totally cut off a whole side of the pitch if he sees the glory ball, which is the one to the left back or the one to the left wing. And I've already seen him do that quite a few times this season. The difference is Udogie plays a lot further infield, so that ball doesn't have to be 30 yards. It can be 20, and it looks nice. So he feels nicely vindicated for having the Argentinian vibe about him. But for that whole back line and the defensive midfield, I would definitely identify Romero as that pressing trigger, and hopefully Arteta hasn't done his homework this season. I know he's the like really intense supply teacher, but I'm hoping that he hasn't necessarily done all of his due diligence before this lesson. So yeah, he would be the guy. But
you know what made me laugh? And to give you context on that reaction from Sai when you said Romero was the pressing trigger, is because there's been a bit of an agenda and debate either way about Romero, especially at the end of last season. That Sai was super critical of him.
Oh, really?
For this reason,
I think he's a very good player. But
to be fair, so the reason why I'm surprised by that is because just from what I see, and again, I'm not in the Tottenham bubble, but it seems like he's held up as the guy.
He is the guy.
It's because he does all the things that proper defenders do. Meaning he leaves his position and he clatters players.
So this is
now he's shook.
Because you see last season, yeah. You see last season. Last season we was in a bad moment. He was playing next to Dyer, Eriksson. Dyer, Emerson, cleaning up after Højbjerg. We were just in a bad moment as a team, and he was bad. At times, he was bad, and I will admit that. But I know what his real level is.
Okay.
And I know this season he's gonna. Romero Hive, we're coming back. We're coming back.
I hope so, because otherwise
we are coming back.
The thing is, I'm more
first one replaced.
I am more pro Romero personally, but I do agree with the assessment that he probably is our pressing trigger. Just based on, from what I see of him, he doesn't really put the skies on his passes. Like he'll always pass the way he's facing, so that will make it, I guess, more favourable for Arsenal to cut off angles. But he does get away with it. But he has got away with it this season through it being alluded to. We have more options and better options for him to pass the ball to it. He actually has a good variety of pass, I think.
He does. He is a good passer.
A good switch. He can punch a ball in between the lines quite well, but it will always be the way he's facing without fail. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. And for me to be, I guess, a bit more positive about Tottenham, the guy that I'm probably most fearful of is James Maddison. I was so just like, why has he gone there? Not from Tottenham can't sign a guy like that, but
no, we've said pretty much the same. To be fair, I
was just like, why there? But to be fair to him, he's started really well, and he's obviously a quality player. So if he's, I guess, picking up those positions in between the lines, obviously that's going to be a massive job for not just Declan Rice, but I'd also say Saliba and or Ben White as well, to lock off that kind of left half space zone that he likes to kind of get into. So there's a bit of, I guess, positivity going your way.
And do you know something I don't want us to do, and it's, well, maybe not in every phase of play. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of building up with two inverted fullbacks. Not a big fan of it, right? I understand one, but doing two at the same time, I'm not a big fan of it, because you lose the ball. There's acres of space out wide for players to attack, and you don't want to be giving that kind of space to Martinelli or even Trossard and Saka, right?
Yeah.
And there was moments in the United game especially where we had both fullbacks inverted. We lost the ball. I think it was Porro that lost it twice in build-up, right? United were in. If they had a better player than Garnacho on that side on that day, we would have been in trouble, right?
Yes.
So me personally, I hope. I haven't seen Ange change it up yet. I've always just seen the two inverted.
I have.
Huh? When?
I have. Even against Sheffield United, Porro started further out wide, and it was only Udogie, and then in the second half he switched it to both inverted.
No, in the second half, yeah, I did notice that in the second, but I just hope, going into this Arsenal game, let's just be wary of that, because they do, like, if you look at their wide forwards, they're probably the top 2 or 3 most threatening in the league. So, the last thing you want to do is do this two inverted building up game, building out from the back. They win the ball high up the pitch, the crowd gets going, and then you give them these half chances on or in these quick transitions. That's you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. So that United game, so I remember those situations with Porro, and that's why that kind of idea of okay, let Tottenham play is in my head. But also, I'm not sure if you guys watched the Community Shield. It's no
I didn't
problem.
watch it.
Yeah, no problem if you didn't, because if it was Tottenham playing, I probably wouldn't have watched it. But Arsenal slightly switched the way they were pressing in that game. So usually it's kind of like almost like a 4-4-2, and then everyone will kind of go towards the ball side and guide it towards the corner. Whereas in that game, it was actually more like a 4-3-3. But Declan Rice was part of the front three. So it was him, Erdegaard, and Havertz who was up front that day. And again, against Manchester City, I guess the main aim for them was not to allow them through the middle. So they were actually, again, just through a different way, trying to force them to the side of the pitch. And I think it'll be really interesting to see, again, if you do the double inverted, if Arsenal try and push Declan Rice further up again. It may not happen because in that game he was also playing as a left 8 rather than a 6, which he's been doing for the majority of the season. But it's just something that popped in my head, so I thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth mentioning because the reason why I brought up pressing in the first place is because we tend to be quite slow starters as well. Like we tend to manage to make the amendments and fix things going into the second half. I'd say the Bournemouth game is the only game I think I'd say we've started well, but other than that, it's been a little bit just tentative and players not attacking spaces quick enough, us not being brave enough with our passes. And it's only when we get into a rhythm after making a few little changes, then we start to really play. So obviously with Arsenal traditionally starting well against us at the Emirates, it's typically when they do most of the damage to us as well. That's my main fear.
We didn't start that United game well at all, I remember.
This is what I'm saying.
That was a terrible start.
All right, lads, we're getting up to the hour mark now, and obviously I just want to do the boring part now. We've broken up the game and talked tactics and lineups and stuff, but what are our score predictions? Si, I'll start with yourself.
Jeez. I don't usually even do these anymore.
I know, you don't even like them, do you?
I don't really like them. I'd rather do a combined 11 so I can keep saying
we'll be here for another hour. I was thinking about it. But...
I would say, oh gosh, for me it has like a 2-2 written on it. Just given the way that both teams have started, I do feel like we can hurt them. I think on the counter, especially if we can get Son into positions to be running in behind, I can just see Son showing up and really, really relishing the opportunity to show, do you know who I am? Energy again. So I want to see a lot of that. But yeah, a 2-2 would be my like heart type of prediction. My head, we won't get into that.
And Ash?
Oh man, I know exactly what I'm thinking, and I'm just gonna say it. I don't see us winning. I'll be very honest. I obviously, want us to come away with something, ideally a win. Fully supporting them, but I just don't think we're gonna win on Sunday. I'll be very honest.
Fair enough. But was there a score prediction in that? I mean, it's fair that you wouldn't expect us to win there. We haven't won there in 30 years.
I'll go 2-1.
1-3. Joking. Fair enough. That's a nice prediction for us. And if you were being very objective and unbiased, how are you feeling?
I really don't want to come across arrogant when I say this.
Just do it. Just do it. Make it all clear.
I feel like it'll be 3-1. As I said earlier, I don't think Arsenal are going to keep a clean sheet. I just feel Arsenal have been gearing up this week, and this feels like similar to last year, where it was just like a moment where everything went bang. I feel like it's going to happen again. And And that's not to kind of discredit the work Ange has done, because again, even from here, we can see the progress that's been made. We're on the same points tally at the minute. Both have had really respectable starts to the season. I just feel once Arsenal get the first, there may be just a moment, and this is another point on Rice. People just latched onto his goal against Manchester United, but during the game, there are loads of different points where he just does something that lifts the whole stadium. I think there will be quite a few moments like that where Arsenal just kind of get another gear to them, and I feel like the game may run away from Tottenham. But again, don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just think that's how I'll pan out.
Fair points.
Hey man, I sort of wish it was disrespectfully, because make the energy that much sweet. Hey man, we've all got your at as well, so we
yeah, send me all the abuse.
Well, no, fair enough. Art, it's been a huge pleasure having you on stream here. Thank you for the insight and the energy. Thank you to my lovely co-hosts Insight and Ash. Just for the housekeeping on the outro. Ash's home debut as well.
Thank you.
Obviously, find us on TikTok and Instagram at New Spurs Order. We're still putting up more content there. Mostly active on the Twitter. Find us with releasing the audio every Saturday morning. So you'll be listening to this now, thinking, why are you telling me this when I'm already listening to it? But yeah, every Saturday morning, New Spurs Order, and we're getting the Patreon content coming as well. So again, at New Spurs Order. But for now, come on, you Spurs, and peace.
Take care, lads.